This week in Behind the Pulpit, we welcome in Delia Kang onto the show, who shares some of her experiences with homeschooling.
One of my friends who were homeschooling said, you could do all of his schoolwork in an hour and a half as a kindergartner. And I was like, what does this mean?
Her and Pastor Bob talk about current events, including maybe having a train on the moon.
Knowing how New Jersey Transit's run down here, I hope that they're not the ones that are going to be controlling the train schedule up on the moon.
And then Pastor Bob and Delia talk about women and mothers in the Bible.
I can spend time with women and moms in their 60s and 70s, in their 40s and 50s, in their 20s, and be encouraged by it.
We've got an exciting episode ahead today, and we hope you enjoy this week of Behind the Pulpit.
Oh, hey there, and welcome to Behind the Pulpit for May the 13th, 2024. This is the post-Mother's Day edition of Behind the Pulpit. Pastor Dave had a long day yesterday. He's down on a retreat today. He's sitting on the beach. Pastor Dave, I hope you're enjoying making charts while you're out at that retreat. We'll miss you today. But I am joined by another very special guest today. The world-changing mother herself, Delia Kang, is here to my left. Delia,
Happy Monday, everyone. I hope it's going great. How are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. It was, by the way, how was your Mother's Day yesterday? Did your kids write you a card as they were instructed?
Yes, I feel like it was a rainy Mother's Day, which kind of helped with the anyone who wants to go home and have a nap kind of day. So we just hung out.
Did they give you a nap? That's the question.
Yes, they did. They're very good. So I feel like a Mother's Day, you can also ask them to do anything, and it's like a free card, right?
Oh,
it's like
good.
you have to, no fighting. Everyone has to get along. Stan made
God
sure
bless
that,
your kids.
Yes, and Stan made sure that I was spoiled. I didn't have to cook. And he took care of making sure all of the logistics were taken care of.
Stan is good like that, isn't he?
He is great like
awesome.
that, yes.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, we're glad that you gave us a little bit of time today to come and join us for Behind the Pulpit. We were talking a few weeks ago, and you reminded me that you were coming on, and I said, oh, that's perfect, because it's right after Mother's Day. I don't know if we had even talked about that when Noah originally scheduled you to come on the program, but this works out really, really well. So before we get into sermon and questions and all that, why don't you tell the folks, some people know who you are, some people might not know who you are. How are you involved at Millington? What are the different things that you do?
Well, I was here last summer. I was just thinking about how I was there last summer.
You
Pastor
were.
Dave was also not here last summer. I'm starting to feel
Pastor Dave is avoiding you. That's the theme here.
Well, it's because
Delia's coming on. I got to go away.
I had some good questions to ask you guys today, and I think he was not wanting to maybe answer some of them. We'll see. Well,
I'll save them for next week.
Well, yes, I'm Delia, and some of the things you could have maybe seen me do is I have done announcements at in front of the church. I help out with Contend Conference, so that's coming up next January.
Yes.
And hopefully you'll start seeing some stuff with that. I help weekly at Awana on the hospitality team under Chrisana, who does a great job. We serve any family that wants to come eat before Awana. They get to come.
The food is always very good.
It's always great, and so I help out with some of those kinds of things. And then also I like to do special projects, just trying to think. We did Contagious Faith book, where we were able to co-lead together, Stan and I, with you. That was a lot of fun and stuff. So I kind of do, as kind of things come up, as a homeschooling mom and as a busy mom.
I was going to mention, you do homeschool, what, four kids? I
homeschool. This was my first year. We're coming to the end of our school year. This was the first year that I homeschooled 4 kids.
Wow.
So I have an 8th grader. Now he'll be a freshman next year. And then a 5th grader, 3rd grader, and Eli was a kindergartner this year. So that was a lot of fun to do this year and takes up a lot of my time.
So I don't know if I've ever asked you, but what's your background as far as educate? Did you go to school because you and Stan do like promotions? Did you do communications? Did you education? What was your?
Yeah, so I was a communications degree major.
Okay.
Anyone who wants to hear my homeschool story, it's kind of long, so come find me.
Could you do a homeschooling sprint? We do a theology sprint. Give us a 60-second version of it.
Well, it started, I guess this is going to be my 10th year homeschooling. And when people start asking me questions as if I'm an expert, I'm like, I don't know anything,
You
but
are
I
a
do know.
KG veteran
Yes.
of homeschooling.
So I've been doing it for 10 years now, and it has been a blessing to our family. But it started because we had recently moved into a new district, and I called to see how long Samuel was starting kindergarten, and I called to see how long it would take, to see how the school bus would work for him to get on the bus. And after doing a little research, I found out that he was going to be on the bus 45 minutes one way to school. And I just thought of like my little 5-year-old being on the bus
For 45 minutes.
Yes, for 40 minutes,
Wow.
45 minutes one way. And one of my friends who was homeschooling said, you could do all of his schoolwork in an hour and a half as a kindergartner. And I was like, what does this mean? And so after, kind of going through a lot of research, I was like, I'm going to give kindergarten a chance and see if I could do it. I mean, how much can I mess that up, right? And so we did kindergarten. And I just fell in love with so many parts of homeschooling, from the flexibility that it provides for our family, to being able to really customize their academics to the type of learner they are, to also bringing in a lot of character development that I think is important for how we raise our kids. And a lot of times when they come home and it's at the end of the day and we have to get dinner and then it's homework and then bedtime, we don't really have a lot of time to build some character things in them. And so for us, it's been a great move. And each year I reevaluate it and say, is this something that's still good for our family? And so that's kind of how we started doing it. But.
Well, it's impressive. I mean, one of the great things about homeschooling, like if you're truly doing homeschooling, is that you can basically build it and customize it for your kids.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of work, right?
Yes.
You got to individualize it for each and every child.
Yeah. When I first started, I really wanted to follow the curriculum of the local district because I wasn't sure if it was going to be a long-term thing for us. Homeschooling is very expensive, and it is also would mean that I would need to stay home for the most part. I've worked part-time throughout the 10 years, but for the most part,
expensive in the sense that since you can't work, you're losing a salary.
And
right?
because you have to buy your curriculum, you have to buy a lot of resources that are readily available through the public school if your child went there. So I followed the district curriculum very closely. But as I became more familiar with homeschooling and just comfortable kind of going in a different direction, I was really able to dive into it. I recently went with 7 of my girlfriends to Ohio. We went to a big homeschool conference, and they're all over the country, but just lots of seminars and workshops and stuff like that. And so since I am homeschooling my first high schooler, I really wanted to prepare and make sure that I'm ready for what's to come, from everything from transcripts to the type of curriculum that would be best for the way he learns and the path that he wants to do. Post high school and stuff. So it is a lot of work. It requires, I would say, 3 things. I think, are you the one that likes alliteration?
That's what Tim claims.
Okay.
I don't always alliterate, but apparently that's what I've become known for.
Well, I would say community, really finding people who are like-minded, doing school, co-ops, that kind of stuff. Curriculum, figuring out what type of style you like, from the classical Charlotte Mason to traditional Montessori. Right. I mean, there's so many different ways. And then I like to throw the criticism in there because I think for me, I really had to learn what I'm not good at and what I can bring in. So, my children have a math tutor, or they have guitar and violin teachers, and you bring in the resources that you're not good at. And I think if you can really have a critical mind on what you can offer your kids, it can really work out well for your family.
We were just talking about that in staff meeting today. We've been doing a staff training book, and part of the discussion today was, how do you receive criticism? Are you defensive, or do you see it as an opportunity to grow and become better at what you do?
Yeah,
and it's never easy, right?
It's never easy, especially when it comes to your kids. Homeschooling. It's like, if they're not doing well, you're the teacher. If they're
it's my
struggling, fault. You're the teacher. And so I think to be able to it's definitely a sanctification process, and that's the best thing we want. So
that
just like
true.
Anything, any other job that you have, any other thing that you do, as long as you're allowing the Lord to grow you in that way. I did want to say, though, this is your guys are homeschooling, right?
Well, so we're doing we're doing a hybrid homeschooling. So we have we do 2 days a week at home on satellite days, and then 3 days a week she goes to a school environment. So that was us kind of dipping our toes into the water.
Yeah.
And Jenna's done really, really well with that. So
Yeah,
we've been very
that's great.
pleased. But it is different. I mean, she is home. We do have to do some work, and it's a lot of juggling and figuring out what works out best for her.
Yeah.
But our feeling was we wanted to have more time to invest in and shape our kids, and help them move at the right pace for them. So
yeah. I did want to say two things. I think there is a big wave of homeschooling coming in. I think people realized after COVID that they didn't want to homeschool the way like virtual learning looked like, but there was so many different ways to homeschool after that. So even recently I've talked to a couple of families that have in our church here that are thinking about making the move to homeschooling. Yeah. But also we have so many great homeschooling families here at Millington. And I think that if you are thinking about homeschooling, you should definitely come find one of us and we can tell you a little bit more about our life.
Delia's a resource. I actually had one or two other people say, hey, if anybody's thinking about it, I'd love to be a resource as well. People that had done it for their kids. So.
Yeah. And I think too, right now, especially in New Jersey, if we can talk about the private school sector, there aren't many options. I'm out in Hunterdon County. And so the only option you have if public school doesn't seem to be the right option is to travel far for a private school.
Right.
And then you throw Christian private school on top of that. That's even, in some cases farther or more stress or, it's just hard to do. So I think with all of those things moving and the ability to homeschool in New Jersey, I think there's definitely been a move to in that direction.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and actually there's been a lot of articles about that, just kind of a move across the U.S. Nationally, as far as homeschooling being the most popular. It's percentage-wise it's still on the smaller end, but it's the fastest growing school choice movement that people are doing.
Right.
And I think for all the reasons that you mentioned, that's why.
Yeah, but we have some OGs that were doing it like 30 years ago.
Doing it before it was a thing, right?
Yes, and those are like the amazing moms that I look back on and I'm like, man, they must have felt like they didn't have all of the resources we have, so.
Great.
Props to them.
Well, thanks so much for sharing about that. I understand you said you came and you had some questions for me, so I'll let you continue to go with your segment. What were you calling the next segment that we're doing here?
Questions.
Something women's edition?
Yes. Questions for Pastor Bob, women's edition. As a woman of the church, there are things that I talk to with my girlfriends and my friends. And one of the things we were talking about was at Awana, and we saw you walk by and we said, I wonder what Pastor Bob thinks about that. So I thought that maybe, I was hoping I could ask Pastor Dave too, but I will ask you. I thought maybe
write these down, and we'll make sure Dave gives his answers next week, okay?
Yeah. Okay, so, don't overthink them. Just the first thing that comes to mind, and, the quick 10 seconds. So the first one is award shows. Worth watching or not?
You mean like the Academy Award
Yes.
shows? I haven't watched it in years.
So it's not not worth it?
So my wife would be the one who's still more into doing that because it was a legacy thing, but, it just became, now it's just kind of people grandstanding, and honestly, I haven't watched most of the movies that are out there. I don't know. There might be an award show that's worth watching, but I haven't stayed. I was really into it when I was younger, though.
Yeah.
But with the Academy Awards, they're always putting up these movies that nobody has seen. It used to be
true.
10 years ago there was like blockbuster movies that were on there. Now it's like I can't even think of them, but they're like these little artsy movies that are popular. It's
and
like
I find that
now.
I wanted to watch them because they had all these awards, and then they're not really like my personal taste in movies usually. So, Okay, fashion. Do you think about it when you go up to preach? Do you not think about it? Does your wife dress you? You got a Colson Fellows shirt on? Is this...
My wife will very much tell you, no, I dress myself, and I think about fashion probably more than I should. But I will say, as I've gotten older, it's just there is a fatigue of trying to think of everything you need to wear. We've been trying to move more where I'm doing a much more simpler, kind of standard. Okay. I don't have to think about it. So, I mean, it's still looking good, but like just there's less choices.
Yes.
So I will. Well, I don't know if I can plug here. There's a website called True Classic Tees. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So that's where I get a lot of my stuff now, and I like them. And there's a certain brand of jeans that fit me pretty well. So I'm trying to go more simple now. But my wife will tell you the first time I met her, I went out and to visit her in Denver, which is where she was, and I had way more clothes than she
Oh,
Back in
wow.
my
Okay, so
single
you were like
days.
that. Yeah. I feel like once
yeah.
you get a brand, too, that you like, that fits your body type,
Yes.
it's like you just got to use,
You always got to
like
try it on to make sure. Just don't assume that two brands will fit the same.
That's true.
But,
That's true.
Yeah.
And then you can start ordering online because you know that one brand's going to fit you perfectly.
That's
too.
the thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have time to go try things on anymore.
Yeah. But yes, my wife will laugh. Yes, I do think about fashion.
Along that same line, how many pairs of shoes do you have, and how many should you have?
How many do I have versus how many should I have?
Yes. Do you?
How many do I have? I probably have, not counting sneakers, like those count? Okay. I probably have 10 to 12, I guess.
Okay. Oh, that's actually more than I thought you were going to say.
Yeah. Well, and some of these are left over I've had for a while. I don't have as much disposable income now to buy some of my kids, but I used to buy more. But yeah, no, I have different styles. I like half boots, like Rockports and Clarks and things like that.
You're not like a sneakerhead that has like them still in the shoe boxes, like in your room.
I have a couple pairs of sneakers, obviously for if I need to do athletic stuff. Shockingly, I will tell you this: I never thought I would ever wear Crocs, but now they're super comfortable. Because when I lived in Colorado for seminary, Crocs were the thing, and I thought those are so ugly. But now they have like different, But
cool.
when you age, they help you with your feet, I guess.
And you can actually get little accessories for your Crocs and stuff. Start collecting.
Well, I have these ones that look like Converse, so if you're not like really looking, you can they're very fashionable now. So
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your go-to snack? You get to go in. You're on a road trip. You go to the gas station, and you get to go in and grab whatever snack you're going to be munching on your road trip. What do you
my wife will tell you combos. Yeah,
that's mine too. I just told
I can
somebody
choose
that.
any.
Yes, those
combos.
are the best.
What type of combos?
I just like the regular cheese one. Just the regular.
Yeah. Okay.
With the pretzels.
Yeah, I like that. You like the more salty stuff, right? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, and the last one is 3 of your best friends come over. What board game or card game are you playing?
Oof, that's a good one. So there is a game that we used to play when I did youth ministry a number of years ago here called the Family Business. Have you heard Family Business?
No.
It's this like mobster game where you it's role playing. So you like form alliances, and they have these different cards that you play. And you can say, I'm going to play this against so-and-so, and then the different people around the table start to help each other. Because you can start to help people out. Like you can save people, you can bring them back to life if they get shot on the hit list. So,
wow, okay. I've never even heard of that game.
I've played Family Business. I played that one. Also,
uh-huh.
ironically, back in the day, I did play Pandemic before we had a pandemic.
Oh, before the pandemic, there was like, oh my goodness.
I was aware of that. My
did you have to wear a mask to play that game back in the day?
Not back in the day.
Not
no,
that one. Not that version.
But and then if you're gonna take me way back, I did like Axis and Allies and Risk.
Okay.
So
yep.
Dave's the big Risk fan over here.
Okay. Yes, Samuel, my son, got into Risk too. Stan likes that game too. So I will save my last question for when we do our books.
Okay.
Because I do have one more.
Sounds good. Well, why don't we hold off for that? Do you mind if we move on to the news segment?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's talk about In the News. All right, so in the news, there's always so many things happening in the news. We got 3 news stories we're going to talk about today carefully. The first one is Jerry Seinfeld was in the news recently.
I saw that.
Were you a Seinfeld fan back in the day?
What is it like?
We're around the same age bracket. Did you watch Seinfeld?
I did watch it, but I wasn't obsessed with it, or I'm not one that can quote a lot of Seinfeld.
You know who can? We've talked about this before. John Bonaventura, a worship leader, loves Seinfeld.
I heard this.
Did you hear how he picked out some guy who had a really minor role in some obscure episode at a restaurant recently?
Oh my goodness! So that's like
he walked up to the guy and said, "Were you in Seinfeld?" He goes, "I was." Were you in? And he mentioned this character, and I was like, I thought I've seen a lot of Seinfeld, and he remembered him. It was pretty impressive.
Wow. Okay.
But Jerry. Well, anyway, Jerry was in the news because he was doing a commencement speech at Duke, and some folks walked out on him in protest, I think as it related to the Israel and Hamas war, because Jerry has voiced some support for Israel. and he, of course, is Jewish. So obviously a complicated topic, but we were talking before, and you had some thoughts on people just kind of walking out after they've spent time investing in their education.
Yeah.
Does this mean they didn't graduate then, if they walked out?
I think they probably still graduated, but it just, I think the point I was making was that I just think would be really sad to go to school for all these years.
Yeah.
You're sitting there and, you're kind of short-sighted in the sense of like really what you're there for, that you can't sit and hear some wisdom from somebody who has lived, a lot longer than you have as you're sitting there, and
right.
so maybe I think
well, and Jerry's just funny.
Yes,
I mean, come on.
He's a comedian, and I think that his biggest point in his speech during the commencement was that you have to have a sense of humor in this world, and I think that's so true, right? I mean, I just think about like the times during the hardest part of during the pandemic, like you had to of humor or else you'd cry, and I think especially if we're talking about everything that's happening in the Middle East, like you have to it's so discouraging, right? Even just to see all of the things that are happening and the division even within our country about these issues. And so I think it's really a good point that you have to be able to have a little bit of a sense of humor.
Maybe there's some moments to build in laughter and levity in the midst of all the seriousness.
Yes.
I feel like everybody's so serious about everything nowadays. Nobody laughs. Maybe that's also why we're seeing a lot of division that's happening, because we're not having shared humorous experiences.
Yeah, for sure.
People take themselves too seriously nowadays.
Yeah, and not to say that what's happening in the Middle East is at all humorous, but I think
I don't think he was saying you should have
he was just saying in life, being able to laugh and be able to enjoy those moments, I would argue with especially your family and your closest friends are going to be the things that are going to carry you through really tough struggles in your life. And so I just felt for our young adults sitting there who are about to go into the workforce, I hope that their perspective is a little bit more wider and not so narrow-minded in the fact that they are going to be around people who aren't going to have the same feelings as them and are not going to look at things the same way. And can they still, reach out and build community where they're going to be? And to me, I felt like just walking out in that way was really discouraging.
Well, I think our country has such a history of building in free speech and diversity of opinions and stuff. I think that's super important. And when all of a sudden that goes away, you start to get into your echo chamber and not hear different opinions. Because even if you're somebody that is trying to build a Christian worldview, and I know you were going to mention a couple of sources that might help you with news and Christian worldviews. It's important to understand what the other side thinks. People that disagree with you. And
even just I wonder how many college graduates really know the history of this conflict. We're hearing about this as in the last 6 months as the massacre happened at the music festival, kind of ignited a new conversation in the media about this. But this has
That's certainly not the first time something like that happened.
I think that we just need to encourage our young people, as well as people of all ages, to really understand how to know that this conflict is a historical one and one that we should really definitely know about. I think
go all the way back, right?
All the way back, and if not, at least 1947 is what would be my suggestion. But
good. All right, so that was the Jerry Seinfeld one. The second news story was: have you heard the cicadas are coming?
I did.
My mother-in-law, she was talking about this the other day, and she said, these cicadas, they're so disgusting. They're like big, ugh. I don't know if maybe Noah can find a picture of a cicada and you can put it up here, but they are not pretty things. But apparently they sit underground for all right, so here's the headline from USA Today. Cicadas will soon become a massive, dead, stinky mess, but there's a silver lining. I think where they come and they eat certain things to help the ecosystem or whatever. But yeah, this thing is disgusting right here.
Well, I just thought it was interesting that they've been underground in one sense, 13 years, and another 17 years. I think those are like the two most popular ones coming out. So they've been living as these little nymphs underground, eating and taking all of these nutrients and stuff. And now they're coming out. They're only going to live. They have the biggest insect cycle, I think, out of all of them, 17 years, because they are coming out, and they're only going to be around.
Loud.
They're so loud. I'm just thinking of like summer plans. If you're planning on sitting outside, enjoying your deck, are we just going to be hearing the cicadas all the time? And then I don't know what type of kids you have, but I have a couple of my kids who they see anything that's flying and they just start freaking out and running around.
My kids are exactly that way.
So I'm just imagining
anything that's a bug. It's a bug. Dad, kill it.
And then I have a couple who will enjoy this process and will take apart, because they leave behind, I guess, like a shell. And they were saying you're going to just be crunching on these as you see them. There's like trillions of them coming. I can't remember what the article said, but yeah, I am not excited for the fact that these cicadas are coming, and I have a feeling we're going to be hearing a lot about them.
And hearing them. I remember when I lived in Denver for seminary, there was not as many bugs as there are here. And one summer I came back to visit my family, and I remember walking outside and remembering, why is it so loud? Because all the bugs make noise.
Yes.
Out west, they didn't do that. It was just quiet. So
I do want to tell you, since you have kids that might not love these, they don't bite. They're not like mosquitoes. They don't bite. Good. So, I mean, I did look it up because I was thinking we're going to have to worry about, I think the last time I was here, we talked about bee stings. Now, so are we...
was that when I had my bee sting last summer?
I don't know if it was then, but I was talking about how I got stung on my foot. I think it
must have been. Yeah, it must have been.
So I guess that's going to be the theme of when I'm on the show. We'll talk about the different
Well, you know what? We just had a guy come out to check out bees at our house, because apparently carpenter bees come out. They don't sting. They come out in May, but then once you get into June and July, that's when the yellow jackets.
Okay.
And they do sting. Don't get them upset.
Yes, and hornets and all those good things. But cicadas, we at least don't have to worry about, them biting us. So that's good. I'm happy about that.
All right, last news story involves NASA, and here was the headline. NASA wants to build a levitating robot train on the moon. So, wow. That's what we're at. Actually, I was listening to a podcast the other day of somebody talking about how we need to amp up our... there's going to be a space race between us and China, and we need to get back to the moon and start to terraform the moon and all the minerals that we can get from there and from these asteroids. But his conviction, this space expert guy, was that we will be sending people up to live and work on the moon in the next 10 to 20 years.
Wow. I can't even imagine that.
Which I guess you'll need a levitating robot train up there if that's the case.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, I guess this is not like a passenger train they're thinking about. It's just going to be a train to get from one side of the moon to the other. I was trying to imagine
I guess so.
that, but
it's like a bullet train on the moon.
I made the comment that, knowing how New Jersey Transit's run down here, I hope that they're not the ones that are going to be controlling the train schedule up on the moon. But that would be just so cool. I mean, I hope that I'm around. I hope you're around to be able to see these cool things happen. But it just reminds me of how creative and inventive God has created us to be, how we have the ability to create these things on the moon. I mean, that's just so exciting to see. And I really hope that our technology and that the funds to make stuff like this happen is made available.
Yes, and NASA hopes to pull it off as soon as the 2030s. So this guy was also saying that people that are in the engineering space, they've been pushing people to moon space exploration, and a lot of people are moving in there because they think that is going to be the next big thing.
Yeah, so would you go?
Would I go?
You had an opportunity.
I don't know.
They call you, hey, Pastor Bob, we have a ticket for you to the moon. Are you on the...
I'm not like an early adopter on those things. I'd have to make sure it's okay. I don't want to be
safe.
flying off into space and suffocating or whatever.
I have no desire to be on the moon. I'm just thinking
I mean, it would be cool to look back and see the Earth. I will say that.
That's
true.
So, I mean, I guess for me, I'm okay with just the photos. I don't have that desire to be off the Earth.
Maybe if I was younger.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it just shows that we're old.
But The Lord is good. So anyway, so that's what's happening in the news. Thanks for commenting on that. And,
yes.
Go and learn your history and read about all the scientific explorations that we're doing.
Yes.
All right. So next, let's see, where are we at here, Noah? Oh, Noah, we've moved on to our favorite segment, the Great Book War. And Delia, I see you got a pile of books here. Pastor Dave would be impressed if he was, or he would be disappointed if he was here. I don't know. He's always the one that thinks we bring too many books. But what do you got for us today? Books.
All right. Well, I don't want you to disappoint Pastor Dave by having too many books. But as the homeschool mom that was coming, I thought I would switch it up by bringing, instead of the books that I am currently reading for myself, that I would bring some of my favorite books that I'm currently reading with my children.
Ah, okay.
And so I thought, before we start, I wanted to ask you, if you could write any book on your own about any subject, what subject would it be?
Well, okay, so that's interesting. So I have a book idea in my mind, and it would I just have not gotten sit down and outline it. My wife will tell you I've been talking about this for a while.
Here's the teaser, guys.
But, okay, so it would involve like what we've particularly what we've walked through with our son and his disabilities and how that's affected our family. I want to write a book that's in the genre of like kind of autobiographical, but like teaching. So that like for example, like Alisa Childress has done a few books like this. Her book, Another Gospel, kind of weaves in her story and then kind of does a theological teaching moment, at the end of the chapter. So I feel like it needs to cover like the ethics of genetics. It needs to cover biblical counseling as it relates to suffering. Apologetics, I think, would be in there too. But weaving in our story with all the things that we've learned and how it's affected our family. And I have not quite got the outline in my mind yet, but I have different images of things that have happened to us that I want to weave together, and hopefully that can help people that have walked through something similar.
Wow, that sounds incredible. I mean, I think it's such a need and relevant right now, especially not only within our NBC family, but just right now you hear about these kinds of issues wherever you go. So I think that I'm waiting for it.
So that's my book idea. Maybe I'll be diving into it soon.
Okay, so for my books that I brought, this is called James Herriot's Treasury for Children. I don't know if you watch the show All Creatures Great and Small?
I do not know it. Where would I watch it if I was going to watch it?
On PBS. It is a beautiful, it's a great show, but James Herriot is the vet, and he was an author who wrote a lot of stories on nature and animals, and his original kind of stories about him as a vet in Yorkshire. Okay. And so they've taken
it's very British. So
yes,
British, yes.
And so they've made a this is like a series of all his little younger books. They adapted it to younger readers. And so this is like something I'm reading right now with my 6-year-old. And he loves it. It just goes through his vet stories, beautiful illustrations. I definitely recommend that. And so I also have 2 girls, 9 and 11. And I started a book club for them because it was really hard. We'd go to the library. They'd pick a book. I'd never heard of it. You go through all the ones you've read as a kid, right? And then you're like, okay, now what? What do they read? So we started a book club for 11 to 13-year-old girls. And the idea was, let's just get people who are like-minded, who are looking for good content, good literature, and do a book club for them. So these are, I would say, in the range of 11 and 13-year-old. And we started last summer or last spring, and we've picked at least 1, 2 books, sometimes 3 books a month. Yeah. And so the one that we're doing tomorrow for our book club is called Perfect. Ooh. And this is a story about Saloma, who's a middle school girl who wants everything to be perfect. She even wears a uniform, even when there's no uniform required. She likes to have a very controlled situation. Okay. And she's in science class, and she hears about how you can photograph the perfect 6-sided symmetrical snowflake by using a digital microscope. And her dad says that he will buy her one if she goes to the weather club. And so that requires her to not have a very controlled environment, meet new friends. Meanwhile, in the school, there's a crime that has been committed. There's phones that are being stolen. And she uses the ability to see patterns and her desire for perfection to be able to solve who is actually committing these crimes. So it's a great book. It talks about friendship, how to maybe get comfortable with not everything being perfect or going our way. And then this was my absolute favorite one to do. It's called The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. Have you ever read it? It's definitely a great book. I have not.
I'll have to check it out, though.
This is a book about a porcelain bunny who is the doll of a 12-year-old girl. She's going to move to London, and he falls overboard, and he's at the bottom of the ocean, and he's found by a fisherman. And you just go through the different his life as a doll. He's broken, he's repaired, and at the end he's shattered, and he's brought to the doll repair shop and put all back together, and goes back to his original owner, who finds him in the shop at the end of the book.
Wow.
And although it's not a Christian story, it is really about redemption and goodness, and a great pick. And then my last one is, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of these, but these are Christian heroes then and now. They go through the story of different missionaries. This one happened to be, we read a couple of them, but this was my girl's favorite, on Ida Scudder, who was a missionary between 1870 and 1960. And she went to India as a doctor. She was a missionary child there and said she's never going back. And then the Lord changed her heart, and she really answers God's call for the people hurting. So the reason I brought this one is a lot of us want our children to understand suffering without going through suffering. And I think one of the ways we can do that is by reading about those who have gone before us and really have experienced that. So thank you for the time to go through those, but I have lots of recommendations.
I'm sure if you want to have a resource,
yes,
contact Delia.
Yes, I can give you the list of some of the great things we're reading. So not for us necessarily, but maybe for your children.
Wonderful. Can I mention one book today?
Yes.
So this is a book called the children's theme, a book called Like Me, and the subtitle is A Story About Disability and Discovering God's Image in Every Person by Laura Whiffler, who wrote that book Risen Motherhood.
Oh.
So I guess she has a child with disabilities, but the book really walks through the perspective of this older brother who has a younger son with disabilities who struggles. And so this has been meaningful for our family as I've read it for our daughters, and understanding just learning what it's like to walk through life with that. So I've picked up a couple really good kids books that have helped with putting that in perspective. So this is a good one.
Yeah.
Like
wow.
Me.
I've never read that one. I'm going to have to borrow that one or
it
get it from the library.
There you go. All right, so that is our book war. I think Delia won today.
That
I'll make sure I
usually
give
happen,
these.
right? Does it usually are crushing.
More people are bringing books on, so I have to recommend less and less because everybody's catching up.
I would also like to say that you and Pastor Dave recommend some really heavy material. Can you guys recommend some, historical fiction or some of the things that you read that are a little bit lighter? Because I feel like every time I look up a book that you've shared, it's heavy.
All right, I'll have to find a lighter book to recommend for next time, which means I have to read more of that. So.
Yes.
That's good. That's good. All right, so that was the book war. Now we are on to, I think we didn't have viewer questions today, so we're going to jump into the sermon. That's okay.
Sure.
So yesterday we did a special message on the women of Luke. And as I mentioned, we had just redone our sermon series outline. We originally were going to do Luke 16, which covered the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, which now we're going to do in 2 weeks, which is about the topic of hell. So we didn't think that was a good idea for Mother's Day.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys not doing that.
Yeah. So anyway, Women of Luke, and we talked a little bit about the history of Mother's Day and how it was important to get cards for your mom, and then we learned from the Women of Luke how to be courageously faithful, how to give sacrificially, and how to focus on future glory. Those were the 3 points we looked at, and we looked at the beginning with Mary and Elizabeth and Anna. We stopped in the middle with the widow who gave all she had in Luke 21, and then we finished at the empty tomb with the women who showed up there. And we talked about if you want to become a world changer, an ordinary, faithful world changer for Jesus, those are 3 things that you can build into your life. So it's wonderful that we have Delia here today because I'm sure you got some questions or thoughts, and you were mentioning a little bit about the card illustration when we first popped up here. So I'll let you you ask me questions since I spoke.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the message was really great in the fact that it was obviously an encouragement to moms to see these 3 women in the Gospel of Luke really live out these amazing virtues of courage, sacrifice, and the hope of the future. And it really, I know for me, made me think, in what ways can I do this better? And I guess we don't usually use the word courageous when we talk about motherhood. It's more like nurturing or, these softer languages. And so when I saw the bear that you put up there, I was like, oh, my sister jokingly sent it to me later and goes, oh, you're definitely the mama bear. And I'm like, oh, okay. I think I want to be more the cuddly bunny, and so
Well, they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, that's true. But I think I appreciated the visual of courage and some of the things we need to do to keep our kids safe. Do things that maybe aren't what the world tells us to do or be for our children.
Well, did you agree with the statement I said? I think it's not easy being a mom today. Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
I definitely think it isn't. There's lots of variables.
How would you qualify that? Why would you say it's not easy?
I think because we are mom and something else. A lot of us have to work. A lot of us are wives. A lot of us are being inundated with the how to do things correctly by 5 different sources if you Google something. So we're competing a lot with a lot of other information and stuff. So I say that in the sense that all the ways that we want to be a better mother, sometimes we just don't have the time or the ability to do or be. So.
And do you take that on yourself? I know sometimes my wife will feel like I feel guilty for not I invest in this one kid and I'm not investing in the other ones, and everybody else seems like they got it together. Do you ever feel that at all? Or
I do.
Is there a comparison trap that you fall into?
Well, I don't think it's so much a comparison, but I think it's exhausting because each of your kids, at least mine, I have 4, they're all at a different place in life, so I think about my teenager and the type of mother that he needs and is looking for versus my 6-year-old and the one that he needs, and then my daughters. And so I think what's exhausting or hard, or where the guilt comes in, is really changing myself to what they need and then you break that up in a day or in a week, and it just feels like sometimes there's just you're not doing enough and stuff. So but
well,
as
14 to 6 is quite the age spread,
But I was one of 4, and if I think back on my time as a small child, my mom was enough. And it was, I don't remember all the times that she, didn't do what she probably wanted to do in the day for me. I do overall just remember her being the most incredible support and everything that I needed in whatever season I was. And so I hope that the encouragement for all moms that are listening is that you are enough for this season. And I don't mean it in a worldly sense, but the Lord is the one that fills in the areas that we're not enough, and because he does that, our influence is enough for them.
That's why I think it's a good to think about it in terms of, and not just for moms, but I think for all of us, if we can think, like when I say world changer, you think, oh, I got to be like this really famous person, but I think the way we change the world is through this just kind of day by day being faithful in loving people and doing what God has called us to do, and then that is what changes the world. So you have the ability to impact your family. That's your first and most important thing that you could do.
Yeah, and I think it's not the glorious job that sometimes you see other people living, and I think that's where sometimes there's a miss. But going back to community and stuff, I think it's important for you to spend time with other moms in whatever their day looks like. I love Millington because I can spend time with women and moms in their 60s and 70s, in their 40s and 50s, in their 20s, and be encouraged by it. We understand each other. We're all trying to love and care for our children. We're surrounded by a church who wants to partner with us, regardless of where we're at. And so I think Millington itself, being that it's very generational, has something special for moms. And
moms that are at different stages of like, have you feel like you've benefited from that? Have you connected with some older moms and some even moms that are younger than you?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I was doing Bible study here from when I had Samuel. Samuel was probably a toddler when I first started, and the encouragement of moms who go before us. And I think there's like that competitiveness that they say that women feel, but I think that in a healthy Christian community, it's really about encouraging each other in whatever season we're in. Yeah. And I've felt that here for sure. And I'm back to having friends of all ages, and that's something special. Not many people in their midlife can say.
Yeah. What when you say competitiveness, what specifically do you mean?
Well, I think like as moms, we can say, okay, well, I see this kid, and
look, your kid's doing more than my kid. Or that type of thing.
Am I not doing enough? Are they not playing enough sports? Are they not, involved in enough of these kinds of things? And it's like, it really isn't about all that at all. It's really about just the types of moms that we want to be. And I think if the type of mom you want to be is one who's being sanctified every day to be more like Jesus, that is shared across all parts of motherhood.
Good. Well, what other questions did you have? Anything else pop in your head? Or just thoughts or notions?
Yeah. I mean, one of
Mother's
the things
Day in general.
I think you brought up a good point about what would we want to see in our cards. And
what would you want written in your card?
The first thing I thought, I don't know if you have kids like this too, that some of them will say the truth more than the other in the card. They'll be like, thank you for, taking me to rugby, and not yelling that one time you did it. Like you'll have those types of cards, and then you have ones that are like, super sweet and stuff. So, but in my card, and I wanted to know with Father's Day next month, I mean, these are also things that fathers should be thinking. But in my card as a mother, what would I want my kid to say? I think it's, Mommy, I trust you. And I was thinking about that in response to my husband and I were able to do some Entree leadership workshops last week. And one of the things that one of the business leaders, Craig Groeschel, was saying was how trust is transparency plus empathy plus consistency. That's what equals trust. And
say that one more time.
So he made the point that transparency plus empathy plus consistency equals trust. And he was speaking about it in a workplace environment, right? But I just thought, well, where does the Lord have me? He has me, every day working with my children. What are they seeing? And transparency for me looks like my kids seeing me in the highs and in the lows, be faithful, see the faithfulness of God. You talked about that in your sermon about the faithfulness of God. They see me apologizing for the ways that I have not, been like Christ-like. And I think that's, we don't want our kids to see us as anything but perfect, but I think being able to have that part of them be seen by you. And then empathy, it's like, I want my kids to not feel like I'm treating them like adults or expecting them to be adults, and they're supposed to be kids, and I'm the adult. And can I have some empathy for the things they're going through? And then lastly, consistently, like, what type of mom do they wake up to Monday through Sunday? And honestly, Sunday, when I have to get here by 9:00, it's harder, right?
Let's go. We gotta leave.
So I want to be consistent in my kids, and so if I believe that those three things equal trust, and I want my kids to trust me because it's important, I felt encouraged by the words of what kind of mom do I want to be, and I want to be a trustworthy one. So, how about you? What would you want your card to say?
Ooh, all right. Now I'm getting asked questions. So on Father's Day, I honestly, I would just hope that my kids would say that they feel loved, and my kids often will say, "Oh, yeah, you're the best daddy ever." And I'm not saying that in a prideful way, but just the fact that that lets me know. I think that at some level they know that I'm their father. I'm the one that they're connected to, and they're feeling appreciated and loved. And I think for all parents, not just moms, but there is a desire to want to really impact your children and bless them, in whatever way that looks like. Both my wife and I take that very seriously as far as how we're caring for our kids. But
I was thinking you specifically picked 3 women to highlight, and I think that they, like you were saying in your sermon, really were important to the gospel story. And I kind of wanted to tell you, how now you picked those women here. What's your view on how we as women can support the gospel mission? Where do you see here in the Northeast evangelical church, what role can we as women play to see the gospel be spread and expand?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I think one of the things that I've been challenged by with my wife, I'll just say for that, my wife is just has a great amount of empathy, and she also in our marriage has the one that I would say often has more. She has greater faith at times when we're in crisis. So I'm the planner. I'm the one who looks in the future. And she's the one who is more in the moment, but is much more trusting of God's going to provide and God's going to get us through no matter what. So I think I think if women can play a great role in terms of encouraging, because I think sometimes you can see things that men can't. Also, I did mention in the message, I think women are great storytellers. So. Particularly with your kids, and even just the stuff you were mentioning here about homeschooling and how you're nurturing and caring for your kids, really just investing in your family and continuing to pass on the story, raising up a generation of kids that want to follow after Jesus is huge. And I think from an educational perspective, moms I think have a great voice and a great pulse on what's going on with their families. So whether you're homeschooling or whether you're involved even in the public schools, I think fighting for values that are consistent with your faith is hugely important.
Yeah, so that's great. And then the last question I had about it, and I can't seem to bring up my notes on my phone that I had, but you had mentioned Anna and how she had faithfully served the church. Did you say she was over 100 years old? Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what most commentators were saying. She's probably likely around 100.
Yeah. So, do you remember the 3 words that were highlighted for her? Now, I was trying to find.
Within the text.
Yeah. Within
the
text.
It was that she. Let me go back, and that's why I write these things down.
I was trying to remember, but
she was patiently waiting for the redemption of Israel.
Yeah, that's right. So I was just thinking about in response to how can we, in the same way, how can we be hopeful of the future? We talked about these news things, how can we look at the future in the same way? How can we be patiently waiting the way Anna did?
Excuse me. Well, at the end of the day, and I keep coming back to this in my own life, at the end of the day, there will be a new heavens and a new earth. And Jesus will come back, and he will make all things right and new. And in whatever you're walking through, whatever hard season or whatever seems to be going on in the world, it feels like the sky is falling, Christians are not people that walk around like the sky is falling, because we know the end of the story. We know that no matter how we get there, eventually we do get there, and there will be this beautiful new world where Jesus is with us and we will be with him, and it's going to be glorious. There's going to be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. That's the end game. That's where we'll get to. And so if you can always keep that in mind, that's where history is moving. No matter what you're going through, I think you can always have hope, no matter what.
And that was particularly encouraging, I think, for motherhood, because I think we go through these times with our children, and it's really hard to sit and be patient and hope for the future, whether that's, what God is doing in their life, or we're waiting for something to change. We heard from Yuan's mom just about the many years that she had to wait, patiently wait for the Lord to work. And so I had just written down just what do I need to be more patiently waiting for, and how can I have not the like panic, this is the world is ending kind of mentality, but how can I be anchored in the Lord to have the hope of the future? Because you have to have that anchoring in the same way Anna did, so I appreciated that part. And
Absolutely.
She's not always mentioned with the Elizabeth and the Mary story, so that was really cool.
Good. All right, well, thanks for your questions. Appreciate it. Thank you for those of you that are writing questions and ask them. I hope that you had a wonderful Mother's Day yesterday, and we're looking forward to Father's Day next month.
Yes.
So, all right, where are we at, Noah? We got one more thing to do. Are we on to the Theology Sprint?
We are on to the Theology Sprint.
All right, so you got any questions over there for us? And then we'll do the church news, and we'll be done for today.
All right, so today's Theology Sprint question is, what is antinomianism and what is legalism, and why are they problematic?
Wow.
All right.
You didn't have an easy one
Delia
today.
volunteered to answer these in the beginning.
Yeah, I'm all of a sudden like trying to go back to all of my Bible school days of trying to do it. But I'm going to sit here and listen.
Yeah. Well, legalism and antinomianism are kind of two ends of the spectrum. Legalism is when you're using the law as a club, and this is what the Pharisees were often accused of. Legalism is, do this or you're out. It's very law-based. Antinomianism, if you break it down, is actually anti-law. Nomos is the Greek word for law. And so to be an antinomianism is to emphasize that you can just live however you want and there's no consequences. But really, neither of these is a good thing, because if you're too focused on the law, you miss grace. If you're too focused on grace, you miss the importance of moral living and following after God's law, that God gave us the law for a reason. To protect us, and so that our obedience can show our response to the grace that he's given to us on the cross. So Jesus Christ came, John tells us, to model both grace and truth. And you have to hold those things in tension as you follow Christ. And don't be a legalist, and don't be an antinomianist. Be a follower of Christ.
Was that a recent sermon, full of grace by being full of truth kind of idea?
Yeah,
I think that is that's probably one of the hardest things to do as you mature in your Christianity, right? Is to really how do we love well and love those that don't live in the truth, while still standing on the most important values that we have as a Christian. And I know we talked about like first tier, second tier questions, but
Yeah, well, I think so. Dave did mention he kind of did the religion versus the gospel, and what do they say? So I think we did that. I think that was last week. So he got into a lot of that when we were talking about the prodigal son 2 weeks ago.
Yes, that's where I'm remembering.
So basically, an example of a legalist would be the elder brother, but an example of the antinomian would be the younger brother who was just living however he wanted. But it's a both and.
Yeah. I tend to be more full of truth than grace. How about you? Because I feel like I have to sometimes.
I definitely have a tendency towards that elder brother. Legalist mindset. Although God has taught me quite a bit about having the right balance and erring more on the side of grace as I've gotten older.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I feel like once you and if you become
Are you
an
eldest sibling?
I am the second, but
okay.
but people used to think I was the oldest because my brother was the sweet, empathetic one, and I was like it has to be done this way and stuff. But I think kids change you too. I mean, there's lots of things that change you as you grow older, but to have I am always praying for more empathy. I can always have more of that for sure, but
understandable.
So
Absolutely.
Thanks for explaining it. I didn't know that those were the technical terms of full of grace, full of truth kind of idea.
They are. Yeah, they are. All right, so let's finish up with some church news. We got a couple things that are happening that I want to draw your attention to before we head out for the day. Number one, we mentioned yesterday there's a women's survey that's happening right now for the women's ministry. So if you're involved, if you're not involved, Kim, our women's ministry coordinator, wants to hear from you on what you would like to see as they're doing planning for the fall. So I think we're going to drop in a slide here, Noah. Will we?
Yes,
okay.
We will be dropping in a slide.
And will it be the slide that has the QR code on it? Hopefully right now you're looking at a slide with a QR code that you can scan and you can go right to taking that survey and filling that out.
Yeah, because the church has a lot of needs. You know, moms have different schedules, different needs, different desires and stuff. So I feel like it's a harder thing to do. And I know Kim really wants feedback and wants to be able to fill as many of the needs as possible. So go fill that out right now. Stop what you're doing. Go do it.
You can pause this recording right now.
Pause.
And
Come back, though, because there's a couple more announcements.
Right. Okay, secondly, sadly, the last couple of weeks, we have not had Pickleball Plus. I don't know. Do you want to mention about this, Noah? You're the pickleball guy over there.
Yeah, sadly, we had a couple of days, last couple Sundays, that were scheduling conflicts for various reasons. But this upcoming Sunday, the 19th, we will be back. The nets will be out, and hopefully the sun will be shining. So looking forward to getting back out there.
What's the vibe? Is it like in the old days, remember, like the softball, like the church softball team? Sometimes it would get a little competitive. It would be, lots of emotions high. Is the pickleball like can I come with my kids? Is it something that's like I gotta be good
absolutely, yeah. I'm not quite sure it's quite as like competitive softball. How would you describe it, Noah?
I would say it's kind of like a elementary school soccer game. You have some people out there playing, having fun, and then a lot of people just chatting, not even watching the game.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun.
So I could bring a lawn chair and just watch or play.
You can. Some people do that.
You don't do the pickleball thing? You're not?
Oh, I do. No, I play.
You play?
Yeah. I'm a big racket sport guy, so that was
I
fun.
am way too competitive to do much things at.
Maybe you should come and play
talk.
then.
I would be like, all like fighting with the invisible ref, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I don't.
Be careful if you get on the
That's
court
why I
with
can
Delia.
no longer do the kids. I can't coach the kids' rugby games anymore. I got too riled up.
Oh my gosh.
So.
Well, rugby in itself is quite competitive, right?
That is true.
All right. Lastly, Charter Day is this coming Saturday. We are getting okay on volunteers, but I will tell you we could still use a few more. So if you are somebody who wants to volunteer, there's a couple slots left for Charter Day. It is a fun event. Also, as we heard yesterday, you can come and get funnel cakes. So, and there's also fried Oreos, by the way. Lots of food options. There's games for the kids. It's a packed downtown Basking Ridge. This coming Saturday, the actual event goes from 11 to 6. We need some. I think we're good on setup, but there's some time slots in there that you can come and help out.
So what is
or just show up.
Practically, what does that look like? So they're standing there. They're meeting with people who stop at the booth. They're talking.
Yeah. So just kind of interacting with people. I think we're giving out balloons. I forget. I have to ask Scott again what we're doing. But yeah, you kind of man the booth, and really it's just talking with people as they come by and letting them know that the church is in the community and cares about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm bummed I'm not going to be here, but next year I'm hoping.
Next year, Charter Day.
But what else do you got going on Saturday? Sign up. Go.
Boom. Delia's going to come after you if you don't.
Yes.
With her pickleball paddle.
There should be some slots filled up. Come on.
All right. Well, Delia, thanks so much for being here today.
This was so much fun.
Yeah,
Thank you for inviting me.
By the way, I didn't mention the first time Delia was on here, we blew up as far as views. So we'll see if we get the highest viewed episode here in a while. So anyway, glad you joined us today.
Subscribe. Like the channel. You're supposed to say all these cool things when you have the YouTube stuff.
I always forget. That's right. We need to do it. We need to get back into doing this at the beginning, Noah.
Yes.
Subscribe, like. There you go. Boom. All right. We'll hope to see you next week.
Maybe
Pastor Day will be back. Maybe he won't. I don't know. We'll see.
Have an amazing week.
All right. God bless.
Bye.